right. Gen Z always considered, whether Balen considered himself, whether he spearheaded it from behind the scene, that is to be seen later, right? To be seen yet. But one thing is clear: Gen Z movement had a very strong faith in Balen. Someday he will come and give us a kind of leadership, which seems to be coalescing around this RSP, Rashtriya Swatantrata Party you are talking about. Yeah, that is looking more and more, the case now. Maybe he had some soft corner. Maybe he was even coordinating, but so far there is nothing solid that tells us like Balen was associated with this movement. But yeah, you are right. He prides himself for coming from a background that doesn't belong to the political or this power elite of Kathmandu.
Nepal may be witnessing one of the most dramatic political shifts in its recent history. 35-year-old rapper turned politician Balendra Shah, widely known as Balen, has defeated former Prime Minister Kipi Sharma Oily in his own constituency, signaling a remarkable challenge to Nepal's long-established political leaderships. What began as a youth frustration and Gen Z-led protest against the political establishment now appears to be transforming into a powerful electoral government movement. With Shah's Rashtriya Swatantrata Party leading the polls and winning the elections and possibly heading towards a landslide victory, this raises an important question. Is Nepal entering a new era of generational change in its democracy? To help us unpack what this means, we are joined today by Dr. Bishnu Ghimire. Dr. Ghimire holds a PhD in English and master's degree in communication studies, and his intellectual work focuses on post-colonial literature, national identity, and cultural discourse. He is currently working in the US higher education sector, where he is engaged in teaching and academic scholarship. Beyond academia, he is also actively involved in international and diaspora cultural initiatives, contributing to community empowerment efforts in the DMV area, the Washington, D.C., Maryland, and Virginia region. With his academic background and close engagement with the diaspora communities, Dr. Ghimire brings a thoughtful perspective on politics, identity, and democratic changes in Nepal. Today, we will discuss Nepal's recent elections and the rise of a new generation of political leaderships that appears to be gaining overwhelming public support. Dr. Ghimire, welcome to our program.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr.
So,
Damro.
let me begin with this. What can you say about the Gen Z led protest and a new generations, particularly a 35-year-old rapper turned politicians like Balendra Shah's rise in Nepal? What this tells you?
Yeah, thank you for that question. It's a very relevant question about the youth participation in today's politics and other social movements. Gen Z, as you know, has become a worldwide phenomenon. It is marked by the generation that came after the turn of the century. This generation is characteristically noted for its innovativeness, impatience, and mostly because they are the digital denizens. Their attention span may be rather short, but that doesn't mean like they don't have a plan. So they are impatient with the slow pace of things changing around them, and then sometimes the system, political system, social system may not have been able to keep up with their aspirations, their expectations. So this general Gen Z sentiment pervaded in Nepal also in the last at least half decade or so. there has been this proliferation of digital media, especially the internet and all those social networking. This connection has given them a kind of outlook that is comparable to the youth around the world. But the quite contrary to this new development, Nepal's political elite class has been predominantly the old guard, both in literal sense of the word as well as social, political kind of status quo, trying to maintain the kind of politics that was established after the overthrow of the partyless panchayat system about like 35, 40 years ago. So, in this context, the Gen Z has been very big, noticeably more participatory, and then in every walk of Nepalese civic life. But they have not been so much like up to this point. Personally, I can testify like they are not very engaged in political conversations just because they feel left out. So all of a sudden, that was not the only reason. We'll come to the basic reasons I think like is behind this kind of Gen Z movement. What happened is around this past September, there were rumors like the government was trying to control the use of social media and the digital information access
And it was banned
somehow.
one for 1 day or something, right? There was a
Yes,
ban.
yes, a
Okay.
little earlier than that, and then when they, it was not like the from the government's perspective, it was just trying to manage the social media to operate in a legal, more professional way, so that like no untoward kind of material was being disseminated, and then public were not at harm. That was the government's position on that. But it was received as an attempt, government attempt to control free speech and freedom to this access to information, and also like to curtail people's access to the outside world so that they could be contained, their ideas could be subdued, and just by limiting their perspective exposure to the world. The government was trying to contain
Hmm.
basically the public opinion.
Okay.
So there was this huge outcry against that, because government was saying they were trying to manage it, and other people were saying like they were trying to control.
Yeah.
So in this backdrop, suddenly there was like an outburst of public outcry. The people gathered around and
Mhm.
public squares and showed their dissent, and they called for a public showdown kind of a protest.
Exactly. So I can't help but uh, showing a parallel to what has happened in China in 1989, the university students led protest, and this Gen Z led protest in Nepal. So there's some similarity and there's some dissimilarity. In the similarity, in the sense, there was killing in Nepal as well. Some 77 people were shot and killed, and then hundreds were injured. And then there was also, besides, there was this burning and vandalization. However, the Gen Z led youth were successful in bringing the changes that they were demanding. Do you think in China it did not happen? There was similar protest, there was killing, but eventually the government gained upper hand, and the government massacred all these university students, and there was no democracy. Things turned back to its normal authoritarian regimes, to in the hands of the authoritarian regimes. So, do you consider that Nepali army has been very lenient against the Gen Z-led protest? Because I don't see the armies have come forward and cracked down. It was only the police that shoot them, right?
Okay, yes. Before we go into this discussion, I think like we need to talk about the the genealogy of this protest, right? I gave
Mm-hmm.
one reason that was like people thought the new voices, youth voices, were being subdued. So that was the reason, like people started gathering around public square and showing their dissent, and then they were calling for mass kind of protests. And alongside that, there was a simmering kind of discontent among people. Slowly, people were complaining about the old guard, the political system as what? Corrupt, political corruption, bureaucratic corruption. They thought like the public services were not delivered in a fair and equitable manner, and there was no responsibility assigned to any kind of wrongdoing. So corruption led to this kind of impunity. People were just like political and bureaucratic heads would collide or collude together, and people were kept out of the process. They didn't even feel like they belonged to the whole process, right, of governance. And third was, they were talking about like this collusion brought up something very nefarious. That was, they claimed to be, they alleged there was nepotism. A new generation of leaders, business people, all those power grabs were going on. A new generation was being prepared within that very family and connections of these old people. So that is how this September protests happened. Now we go to the role of army and police, right? There is this government set up an investigation commission to investigate that those 2 days actually,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and then it has not come out yet. But like you said, the police seems to have been unable for whatever reason. I am not somebody who is capable of commenting about the deployment of police and military force in internal conflict, or rather internal uh, uh, situations, right? Protests and rioting. But apparently the police did not, were not able to contain.
Right.
They were just negligent in the beginning. They just thought like this was a simple process.
Mm-hmm.
They will protest and leave,
Mm-hmm.
and they totally did not expect it to go to that length. But it so happened that the protesters, they called their supporters to come to a venue and be dispersed by 2 p.m.,
Mm-hmm.
just showing the dissent and leave. But they would not leave. After that, the protest movement grew and grew. They were starting to march towards the National Federal Parliament.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when the clashes happened. I could not, I mean, at this point, to be fair, like, we do not have a definitive answer to
Mm-hmm.
like how that unfolded, but security forces were totally either
Right.
incapable of controlling the riot, or they were totally uh, outmanned. They were
Yeah.
overpowered,
Exactly.
and the
Or
mayhem that you are talking about, like that, broke out.
yeah, but Nepal do have armies, right? Nepal do
They
have an
do.
army, and maybe they were sympathetic, and unlike what has we see in China, where the tanks ruled out, and with the machine guns, and then everyone were killed, massacred there. So comparing to what has happened in China, and Nepal governments and leaderships appears to be sympathetic, or really finally give in to the demand of the students or the Gen Z led protest. So now, do
Yeah.
you think, yeah,
Yes.
do you think the demand of the Gen Z have resonated with the peoples in general or at national level? Because giving the landslide victories of the election seems like their message, their demand resonated with the entire nation. Do you think?
Yeah, very much so. I would like to say a word about the role of military. Yes, of course, army did not deploy itself in the streets.
Yes.
Whether they were a part of they were a part of this security mechanism that was supposed to control the crowd and hold the curfew in the streets. That is a different story. But when that did not hold, when the whole thing just broke loose, army was in control, but they did not clash with the people. So no untoward activity from the army side, and yeah, the confrontation with people did not happen at all. That's there.
Mhm.
So in this regard, army did not deploy against the people.
Yes.
Not only that, in the aftermath of that, a few leaders within the Gen Z movement, or at least people who were sympathetic towards Gen Z movement, including Balen Shah himself, had made an appeal to the military not to just like crush the rebellion, and that is still a sticky point about like Balen's political future. But that must be said, army did not deploy,
Mhm.
and army presented itself. So far the narrative is that they have presented themselves as the final
Yes.
safeguard for the
Mhm.
political system. When everything fell down, they were the ones who restored it, because
Mhm.
they took control of the political leadership. Even the president took shelter in the army barrack. That's the story, okay?
Mhm.
And then army turned out to be like totally in control of the situation. So
Mhm.
they did not deploy against the people. Absolutely no. Yeah, that's the thing.
That's
So
interesting.
talking about the mandate, you are right. Overwhelming two-third majority of almost
Mhm.
in the House of Representatives, they have gained that mandate from the elections. That means,
So
yeah, the
with this
new
mandate,
leadership.
is Balen Shah, is he going to form a government? Is it going to be still a coalition government or like a majority government? What it will be like?
So far, there are only one or two seats that are needed to reach the two-third majority.
Mm.
So that's a totally different consideration for now. But they are overwhelmingly there. Almost two-third means they can bring in, except like some constitutionally restricted provisions. Other
Mhm.
than that, for day-to-day business, running of the country, like uh, doing any kind of reform in the bureaucracy, maybe, and other political setup, they can do it on their own. They don't need anybody's help.
Mhm.
But when it comes to long-term projects, right, and then some reforms that may go beyond 5 year tenure of an elected government. So when it comes to that, they still need some kind of consensus, at least some support from a few other parties.
Mhm.
But the story is that combined total of every other single party, like five or six of them, is only a third of the electoral seats, right? So that may not be a very difficult thing for them to gain.
Mm. Okay. So when I'm reading the news, Balen Shah, he appears to be born from the Mahdi regions. Is it right? Like where he was not from the political elites, and besides, he had not that a very long kind of a political experience. He just served mayor for a few years, and before that, he was a structural engineer and then a rapper and so on. So his rise was extraordinary. And so what everyone is expecting, so this is a historical and unprecedented, right? That the way he rose to such power and to prominency within such a short period of time. And
Yeah.
did he spearhead the Gen Z led protest? Was he the one who behind the Gen Z protest or not?
Balen never presented himself as the leader of the Gen Z movement, although
Okay.
there were hints here and there, like people were speculating maybe he's behind the scene running the show, kind of thing. So, for example, he called on the military to say
But
like,
he
okay,
supported
please.
did he support the protest, Gen Z led protest? Didn't he support it?
Not overly, not visibly.
Okay.
He is to be seen nowhere. The
Mhm.
rumor is that the Gen Z movement even approached, after the government was toppled, they approached Balen Shah with a proposal to become the interim prime minister, which is
Right.
Sushila Karki now. They
Yes.
wanted him to be the prime minister, and then he refused. That's the story, okay, so
Mhm.
far. But again, you are right. Gen Z always considered, whether Balen considered himself, whether he spearheaded it from behind the scene, that is
Mhm.
to be seen later, right? To be seen yet. But one thing is clear: Gen Z movement had a very strong faith in Balen. Someday he will come and give us a kind of leadership,
Mm.
which seems to be coalescing around this RSP, Rashtriya Swatantrata Party you are talking about. Yeah, that is looking more and more, the case now. Maybe he had some soft corner.
Mhm.
Maybe he was even coordinating, but so far there is nothing solid that tells us like Balen was associated with this movement. But yeah, you are right. He uh, prides himself for coming from a background that doesn't belong to the political or power elite of
Mhm.
Kathmandu.
Mhm.
And Magdi, you are talking about some other person. There is another similar kind of figure emerging. He
Mhm.
comes from the Western Nepal, but Balen Shah claims his heritage, or rather, he comes originally from the southern part of Nepal, which is
Okay.
bordering with India.
Mhm.
So
Yes, yes.
the Tarai region of
Right.
Nepal, that's where
Oh.
he originally comes from. And
Mhm.
then his dad moved to Kathmandu. He was a doctor of some sorts and associated with the royal family. I don't know,
Mhm.
maybe a doctor in the family, something like that. But
Mhm.
Balin himself prides in that heritage. Like, I come from a simple background. I come from
Mhm.
a minority Tarai people. So yeah, that's always there. This sentiment, and then the choice of his genre of song, right? Music,
Mhm.
rapping.
Mhm.
Yeah, as you know, like hip hop and rap always.
So probably
Uh,
his lyrics, when he's rapping his lyric, the message of the lyric probably resonates with the youth. So what I read is that his lyrics were focused on social issues and politics and something, the Nepali Gen Zs and the young generations they were looking for.
yes, yes. I do not want to discount the seriousness of this movement by saying
Mhm.
this, but again, this is what truth also. The Gen Z movement was not mainly focused on like political policy and the big, long term kind of vision for the country. It was like absolute mayhem. Right now it is so out of control, the corruption, nepotism, and impunity. Like, they just felt like there
Mhm.
was no way they could continue in this current situation. So you are right, Balance lyrics are full of those rebellious kind of sentiment, and
Mhm.
that resonated with the youth there when he ran the mayoral campaign in Kathmandu. He
Yeah.
was his other opponent was from previously he used to be in the communist movement, and he was a rebel within the movement. Everybody thought like this is a rebel who is established and he will win, and all of a sudden Balin comes
Mhm.
somewhere and just like smashes him totally. So
Mhm.
yeah, that sentiment resonated with his lyric, and Balin's sudden rise was sudden to us, like who look from outside, but apparently people were already
In
infatuated, totally enthralled with him.
in some way he's what do you say, a kind of enigmatic figure, like a mysterious figure. There was one time where journalists asking him questions and he hesitated, or he doesn't talk to the journalists that much. And then there was one time where a journalist reporter asked him what is his media strategy, and his media strategy is no strategy. So uh, so, I mean, the way he handled everything, and the way he riled up his support, the kind of enthusiasms those supporters showed whenever he go and those rally was really mind blowing. And I have never seen something like that. So I mean,
Yeah.
the Nepali people are very hopeful of him. And are you also hopeful that things really will change for the better now?
Yeah, I mean, uh, that's very correct depiction of Balin's rise. Yes, when he went out. about campaigning for the election. People were asking him questions. He would sometimes outright refuse to answer. Sometimes he would just speak for 2 minutes. People go lecturing like during the election campaign. They speak for like the speech lasts for half an hour, 1 hour like that, and then he
Oh.
speaks for 3 minutes, and then people are scouring through it to find the meaning behind it. And he says like, "What is your strategy?" So he would not talk. And once he said, yeah, people have been talking too much, we need to work, look at
Mm.
that. And then that becomes a sensation, like, okay, Balen says like he doesn't want to talk, he doesn't want to answer our questions. So these are, he thinks like they are political questions, they do not matter too much to him anyways. That's his strategy. I'm not belittling him, but he is not into talking politics anymore. Policy
Mhm.
debates can wait. For now, he's just saying like change is coming. Here we are fed up with what is going on, so let's talk about it. That's the only strategy he brought. And then in the background, there is this RSP party, right? Political party he joined in the
Mhm.
final hours of the election, uh,
Yes.
before the filing the candidacy, right? So there was this perceived kind of people perceived that there was a kind of political persecution going on against newcomers. The incumbents, whoever was in power, were trying to ostracize the newcomers so that they could be ruled out as future leaders, and the monopoly could continue. The same kind of musical chair, two three party leaders sitting together and making backroom deals, and then not involving people in any process in a meaningful way. That's what we were talking earlier, right? Corruption, political corruption, then bleeding into bureaucratic corruption. So people thought like they were done with that. And this RSP, the Rashtriya Swatantra Party, cast in into that. I would say cast in, because
Mhm.
they were saying like we are victimized, we are ostracized, we are politically persecuted. So this must end, and people bought into their narrative. I don't know what more we can say. People believed what they were saying. Really, really, you are the underdog. These people are keeping you from coming to the mainstream politics. Therefore, they riled up against the system, and every time something would happen to these party leaders, people would vote in like even increasingly greater numbers.
Mm.
So that was already visible. Like slowly, the party leader Rabi Lamichhane, he owned from the same district, despite being charged with so many different kind of allegations, fraud
Mhm.
allegations. People voted him. They doubled down, and now they tripled down on it. So
Mhm.
I don't know how to say this, but again, Gen Z movement is totally into it.
Yeah.
They think like
So
they have won.
So what I read is that he in his campaign speech he advocate for free education for the poor, free health care, and then he is going to create more employment, and then he is going to have invest more into the countries, so there will be more accountability for governances, no corruptions, all of that. I mean, those might be the roadblock for development and for the progress of the nations. So, do you believe that he might become a savior for the country? Nepal is such a lovely country, and because of the political instability, it really has kind of hampered the progress for the people's livelihood and so on and so on. So now, if his policy is going to be implemented as he campaigned, will it really lift Nepal out of where it is now in terms of livelihood, like the development and so on? So, uh, will people's hope really going to be realized or not?
Yes, in this question, I think like Nepal has an immense potential to do the kind of progress that you are describing. Under this new leadership, without being too political, I would say I have seen quite a few of those years of since the overthrowing of non-party party-less panchayat system. So after that, many governments have come and gone. Not much has changed. I'm not saying like the slowly, gradual kind of automatically. The world is changing, so there will be some progress and development. Don't
Mhm.
get me wrong. Nepal
Yes,
has made some significant progress along that line,
yes,
but
yes.
that's not what it is. People, other countries in our region also are making such strides, and we are left behind. So Balen and the new parties, I think like what they are saying with regards to the health care and education, all these things, they are talking about it has been totally corrupt system. Our resources have been misused and
Mhm.
mishandled. So if we can put this a break into this thing and put a certain agenda, right, that is long lasting for the progress of the country, we can do that. And I think there is some truth to that statement, and also the kind of movement we have seen, the kind of uprising of the uplifting of the youth sentiment. I think like if we can put this thing to some practical use, Nepal has an immense potential to do
Yes.
some meaningful to make some meaningful progress.
Mhm. So I need to bring up questions relating to the Tibetan refugees in Nepal. Tibetan refugees has always been very grateful for the country for allowing them to stay there and giving them refugees and so on. But then there are also Tibetans refugees who come later. They were also denied of refugee status and so on. But it is assumed or believed that mostly due to Chinese pressure, then the Nepali government has to act sometimes in terms of curbing their activity, political activities, and so on. So, do you think the change of government will make any differences in terms of Tibetan people's political freedoms or livelihood in Nepal?
Uh, that one, that question has two sides to it. I think one is, of course, the youth and new generation and their global exposure, the outlook had changed from the time the first time Tibetan refugees came to Nepal, right? They have been there for 3 generations, some of them.
Yes.
So political landscape has changed, people's attitude has have changed, and then also the uh, political scenario around the world also has changed, right? So in this globalized world, I would say one categorically like youth would be more receptive to this kind of accommodations, I believe.
Mm.
But again, the geopolitical scenario you are saying is more complicated than that. Nepal's will along because it's a poor small country, right? Trapped between like China and India, two enormous neighbors, and moreover, when we talk about geopolitics, sometimes it goes beyond the immediate border, and then the world politics seeps in. So at that time, maybe Nepal has some restrictions in what it can do or how it can receive the question of refugees. We did have a huge number of 110,000, more than that coming from Bhutan. And uh, unlike Tibetan refugees in Nepal, these people were like they left from Nepal around the maybe uh, during the Second World War, right? And then went eastward as far as Myanmar and Bhutan and eastern part of India. And these
Mhm.
Bhutanese people came to Nepal,
Mhm.
but were not able to go back because
Mhm.
there was no entry point except through India's land, right? And they were denied access to their own home country, so they became refugees in Nepal. So these two different scenarios, when I weigh them in, if Nepal can, I would say the new generation has a more accommodative approach.
Mhm.
If it is within the means of Nepalese government, maybe there is this new hope for those demographics as well. But on this one, to be honest, like this is
Mhm.
bigger than Nepal itself.
Yeah.
It does not have the resources and power to do all on its
Mhm.
own. But I think like that's a very good question to arise in anybody's mind who is watching Nepal.
And this time, the Nepali youth really spoke out extremely with great power and effect, and changed the entire landscape of the Nepali politics and so on. And I have 4 more minutes left, and so is it now, today we are recording it on March 10th? Is it certain that Balendra Shah, he's going to be the prime ministers? And then what we need to wait and see now?
I think it is almost certain that Balendra Shah will be the Prime Minister of Nepal,
Mhm.
except for the fact that it is the party who decides on that. So there is
Right.
a tacit understanding with the party leadership who going into the election, although it's not a directly elected Prime Minister executive in Nepal,
Mhm.
but the this time around the proposal they were taking to the people was like, yes, this is our prime minister candidate, vote for him. So there is
Mhm.
an immense pressure from the public also to see
Yes,
him as the prime minister.
yes.
And
So he was the prime
unless
minister
something
candidate.
changes,
Mhm.
unless something changes, looks like he's
Exactly.
going to be the prime minister.
Yeah, so he is the ministerial candidate for the RSP. And RSP, when you look at it, was a new political party and was founded by an investigative journalist. So everything is new, but so powerful and so effective in terms of bringing changes.
Yeah, yes, yes. And you brought it up. That was very right, context. Rabi Lamichhane, who is a U.S. returnee,
Mhm.
and then he left US to go back to Nepal, and then started working in the TV as a journalist and investigative journalist, yeah, for that.
Mhm.
And he aired some programs on the TV that was purely like sensational in a good way, like exposing the misdeeds of these corrupt manpower companies, and
Mhm.
then how people were, being duped out of their fortunes in the local level. I mean, there are allegations against him. That's a different story. Okay,
Mhm.
I'm not
Mhm.
saying he's all saints, right? But again, at the same time, he did it in such a way that there was palpable anger, there was palpable dissatisfaction among
Mhm.
people, frustrated like with the old way of doing things, and they did not feel like they belonged indeed. So when he exposed these kind of tiny little, wrongdoings by powerful people, then that resonated. People thought like, yeah, that's our Messiah, if that's not a too big a word. So yeah, they just thronged around him. He just found like, yes, this is the right moment to open a new political party because people are behind me. And he
Mhm.
started the political campaign, established a party. After that, the party has never looked back.
Okay.
There have been upsets every now and then, but the party has steadily grown, and you can see within 3.5 years, it has
Okay.
got like two-third majority in the
Mhm.
House of
So
Representatives.
is it correct? Like even the Nepali expatriates, they are all also very supportive of the new Gen Z-led protest and then the prime ministerial candidate Balen Shah. And
I can speak for myself here.
Mhm.
In a way, yes. I hope the new Gen Z generation Z is going to be more receptive of the worldview coming from
Mhm.
everywhere,
Mhm.
and especially the expatriates, because I live abroad. I always think like we can contribute in some way to the good of Nepal. We are Nepalese wherever we go, just like the sentiment I brought up with the maybe more acceptable new generation towards the refugee problem, etc. So this broadening of perspective among the new generation, I think like they are opening up towards the expatriate Nepalese people also. There have been conversations about uh, giving those expatriates some kind of citizenship without voting rights and political
Mm.
rights.
So what we can look forward to in the days to come now.
Yes, for generally for people who are well-wishers of Nepal who are interested in knowing about Nepal. I would say it's been a while since Nepal has not been able to significantly present itself in the global marketplace of ideas, or maybe even for business and uh, politics, right? But I think Nepal is changing too, with the easy access of information, and the kind of youth, empowered youth of Nepal. We have I have at least an enormous hope in the country's future, and that is already indicated by the new leadership, the expectant leadership, already sending out messages like, yeah, we are open to conversation, to start talking to you on bilateral or multilateral terms
Yeah.
as co-equals, which I mean, policy wise it has always been there, but again, to assert your kind of national pride and state your position very clearly, I think
Right.
the new generation is able to do that.
Yeah.
And one more thing, while we are here, everybody can facilitate in their own way for
Mhm.
this tiny little beautiful country,
Yes.
uh, trying to take strides in a positive direction.
Yes.
So this was not anything untoward in terms of like social kind of um, the cultural social aspect of Nepal. Nepali people are still very friendly
Mhm.
and hospitable, but
So,
that was like internal outburst
yes.
because they just really felt
Mhm.
frustrated.
So
So
generally,
there's not
Nepal.
too much to take away from. Go ahead.
Generally, Nepal government change every 5 years or 3 years. Like if a prime minister serves
Five
for the
years,
5 years,
elected for
okay,
5 years. Yeah.
okay, and if this everything goes well, he Balendra Sharma, 35-year-old, he will serve for 5 year, and he's so young, and many consider him as a transformative figure, and he has a long career ahead, and really great potentials to uh, transform Nepal completely in terms of its landscape, political landscapes, and progress and so on. So it's really amazing to see what he is going to do now.
Yeah, and to our brothers and sisters around the globe, uh, Nepal is trying to see if it can participate in more meaningful way in the global marketplace in terms of political exercise, democratic exercise, as well as financial and other ways. Uh, I hope the world community receives Nepal and its young leadership positively as
Yes,
co-equals. There may be terms that need to be negotiated, whether it be in the world of business or maybe political partnerships. But I hope the world is open to receive the
yes.
Nepalese new generation of politicians.
Yeah, both China and India, they sent congratulatory notes, and they were looking forward to cooperate with Nepal in terms of its foreign relations and on many other strategic interests. So both countries were looking forward. Is it and at the same time, is it fair to say like this time, Nepal or China did not uh, get a China-friendly government, or before, like the Communist Party, there were two Communist Party. They are more aligned with the Chinese, but this time RSP is not a communist government, right? Communist Party government or anything. So it's called
Yeah,
census.
in terms of sorry, yeah, in terms of platform, you are right, but I think like China, the kind of economy and political systems it is exercising, even the US is accepting the economic performance of China in the world stage. So,
Yes.
given that politics and economics can be kept apart, and China will engage with Nepal in a meaningful way. It has done before also, And I think like it is important for Nepalese people and leaders especially to think about India and China as partners in peace, not at times of tension. We always think of like China and India using Nepal. That's not the point. Nepal can benefit by balancing, keeping equidistance between the two countries, and then also doing business with both of them at the same time. So
Mhm.
I don't think any of those two neighbors are averse to this idea of co-equality.
Mhm.
Nepalese leaders should assert themselves as like we are partners.
Mhm.
We are not only receiving, but we are giving you something. So they have to come
Right.
across as really authentic and assertive. I think
So
that India and China both will like that.
so on. So I spoke to some of the peoples in Nepal, and they say that he had a good track record of serving as a mayor. So based on that, can we expect the same thing when once he becomes the prime minister, and he will build on that track record, and everyone it will he will take Nepal to the highest possible point.
Yeah, I think Balendra's main draw in Kathmandu was thinking of small things, trying to make changes in people's lives, like in positive way.
Mhm.
Small thing, like you talked about the waste management,
Mhm.
and decorating public spaces, and claiming the reclaiming the heritage, making people feel like they belong. There are those
Yes, yes,
tiny little things, small gestures go a long way. So Nepalese people are not at this point like bothered about long-term strategy at all,
exactly. Yeah.
because when you have some problem right in front of you,
Bring pride to
the
their
first
heritage.
step is important.
Mhm.
Very much.
Yes.
So Balendra has that aptitude to talk to people's these immediate needs.
Mhm.
I hope this new government will address those things,
Mhm.
and other things can take care of themselves once the electorate is so very aware of what is going on. The same people will grow up to be mature leaders tomorrow, and Nepal's future is all bright, I hope.
That's wonderful to end the show here. And both of us are
Thank
here
you.
witnessing this uh, earth shattering changes in Nepal and have the honor to discuss it with you. Dr. Bishnu Ghimire, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Mr. Damjol.
Yeah, thank you.